Hello everyone, what is up? It is me, AlbiMTG. For today's video, we will be doing our first Ravnica Allegiance practice sealed for pre-release coming up soon. Pre-release is this week, so if you guys are planning on doing your pre-release events, it's usually a good idea to maybe familiarize yourself with the cards, maybe do a couple practice sealed events like we're going to do here on draftsim.com today. Nice and easy, click sealed and then go to RNA and it'll go ahead and generate a sealed pool for you. It's a little bit different from pre-release because in pre-release you have the ability to choose what guild you want to play, which can kind of like lean your pool towards more of your playstyle or towards the cards that you think might be better in the set. Sealed's a little bit different here on Draft Sim because it's just like you were going to a GP and they just handed you 6 packs of RNA. So it's a little bit different here, but I think it'll be a nice way for us to go ahead and take a look and talk about some of these cards and maybe get you guys a little bit ready for pre-release here. So this is my first time doing a sealed. I have been doing some practice drafts over on Card Spheres Simulator. But this is our first time here doing a sealed sim, so should be some fun. Looks like Forbidding Spirit's a pretty solid one. Lumbering Battlement's one of our rares. I think this card's pretty decent. As we move down to blue, we've got some reasonable blue cards. We've got like the Sage's Rose Savant, which I think is a pretty solid common. It looks like we actually picked up 2 of them, which is pretty nice. Quench is fine. It's not great, especially later in the game. Thought Collapse is a little bit better for sealed because it's just a 3 mana answer to whatever their biggest bomb is. And normally sealed is much more about just having some like crazy bombs than it is, you know, maybe having like a super synergistic deck because it's a little bit harder to come up with those synergies in sealed than it is to come up with them in draft. But yeah, Thought Collapse is pretty solid. Another one of our rares here looks like Priest of Forgotten Gods. I think this card is pretty sweet. Sacrificing 2 creatures as well as tapping it seems like a lot to pay for it, but you do get a pretty powerful effect from the Priest. Nothing else too crazy here in black, just kind of like some filler commons it looks like. In red we've got some solid stuff though. I really like Rubble Belt Recluse. This card is great. You want to be attacking a lot, especially in sealed, so I think something like Rubble Belt Recluse could be a great card for sealed. 6 power beater, just continuously attacking. Also, this card up here, the Clamor Shaman, I think is fantastic as well. That's a very solid uncommon. A little bit of removal here in Skewer the Critic, so I do like what we have in red. We also have another solid removal spell here with Flames of the Raised Boar. In green, Growth Chamber Guardian, not necessarily the best. This is more of a constructed card than it is a draft card, but it is a decent little 2/2 for 2 that can eventually become a 4/4 later on in the game. I do like the Ceratok as well. It passes the vanilla test and then has a little bit of evasion on it because it can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. But let's take a look at some of these multicolored cards and see what we've got in here. Again, looking at Gruul, I'm seeing the Rubble Belt Runners, which are very solid pickups. I like the Senate Guildmage. I think Senate Guildmage is probably my favorite, or at least the best of the Guildmages in this set. This one just does so much work. The top one can be really relevant if you're up against Gruul or if you're up against Rakdos, where they're trying to kill you pretty fast. And then the bottom one, if you're up against any of the other decks where they're just trying to play a pretty grindy matchup, then drawing cards and discarding cards can be, fantastic. The ability to loot away your lands later on in the game and just continue to draw solid spells can be fantastic for the Senate Guildmage. We have some solid Simic cards here as well. Frilled Mystic, Sharkdo Crab, both very, very solid cards. High Alert. We have a Bedevil, which is a very solid removal spell for Rakdos. Get to the Point again, another solid removal spell for Rakdos. Looks like we picked up a Breeding Pool. And yeah, so that's pretty much our... Oh, we also picked up a Blood Crypt, so this wasn't really the best set of rares to open up, but we did get some solid cards. I like the Senate Guildmage. I like the cards in Gruul here with the Rubble Belt Runner. I also like the cards in Simic here with Sharkdo Crab, Frilled Mystic. So maybe we end up doing something like Teamer. We have the ability to play the Open the Gates as well. We could honestly, with the double Open the Gates as well as all of these, dual lands, we could put together something that's, maybe even a 3-color good stuff, 4-color good stuff kind of strategy. We have 3 for Rakdos, 1 for Azorius, 2 for Simic, 1 for Orzhov. Okay, or actually we have 3 for Simic, I guess. So this could work out pretty decent. The only one we're missing here looks like Gruul. So yeah, we'll try and put together. Let's just go ahead and take a look at what kind of a good stuff list would be like. I want to start off with something like Teamer, good stuff. So we would want these Sage Rose Savants. Those are pretty solid. 5-power flyer, perfectly fine. We don't really have any other flyers to go with it, but sometimes you just need that evasion and limited. We have Thought Collapse. Shimmer of Possibility could be a nice way for us to, get our mana fixing going as well, because we can look at the top 4 cards, maybe find a land that we need, or a guild gate that we need, so Shimmer of Possibility is something we could do. We'll skip out on the black cards for now. I'm not overly impressed with the black cards that we open up in this pool. Cry of the Carnarium is pretty solid, but not overly impressed. Clamor Shaman's pretty solid. These Gore Clan or the Gore Clan Wreckers, they're fine. Nothing too crazy, but they're solid pickups for the deck. Skewer the Critics definitely gets in, as well as Flames, because those are solid removal spells. The Growth Chamber Guardian, the Ceratok, again another 2/2 could be fine. We're gonna run both of the Open the Gates, which could also just find us a Gateway Plaza, which could be a really key interaction in this strategy that we're putting together. We would end up playing probably the Guild Mage. I think since it's sealed, I don't mind running one of these 7 drops as well. Maybe a Mammoth Spider in here too. These solid 3 drops here. Frilled Mystic, Sharkdo Crab. Maybe not the Scuttle Gator. So what is this? 25 cards, one of which being the Gateway Plaza. So we're more like 24 cards, and this would be Teamer. So what would we cut from this? Maybe just like one of the Wreckers, probably. Looks like we have a lot of 5 drops, I guess. If we want to be more, I guess this deck is a little bit more aggressive, so maybe Mammoth Spider is not really where we want to be for this sort of a strategy, and that could be more of a just a sideboard card. But so all of the Teamer lands that we would have then would be like this, and this. It would just be the 3 Simic. So now we can go ahead and look at maybe something that we would want to splash. So the cards that we could possibly think about splashing, I would say, are probably some of these white cards. I think the white cards are probably the cards that I would be most interested in splashing. I like the idea of splashing for the Senate Guild Mage. I like the idea of splashing for, where is it? Splashing for, there it is, the Law Mage's Binding, just some additional removal as well. So I don't mind a little bit of a white splash in our deck. We can run the Azorius Guildgate, and then we have the other land to be able to cast it, the Gateway Plaza, and we can use the Open the Gates to find those guild gates pretty easily. So we could go like Azorius Guildgate, and the Gateway Plaza is already in the deck. We would get Law Mage's Binding, and we would get the Guild Mage. If I can find the Guild Mage. And again, the Guild Mage, even though it's a 2-mana 2/2, I don't mind having it in my deck. Even though it's a splash card, normally you wouldn't want to splash something like a 2-mana 2/2, but again, with this loot effect, I really like it, and because we're going to possibly be more of a creature-based strategy, I like the fact that we can also just attack with this for 2, if necessary. So yeah, I think this is a pretty sweet little lineup of cards here. This would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so 6, 12, 18, 24, 25 cards. So we would make 2 cuts from this. 2 cuts from this. These are kind of similar cards. I could see us possibly wanting to cut down on one of those, or even like the Combine Guild Mage really isn't like the greatest. I think we could also just like cut down on the 7-drop too. That's definitely a possibility. Yeah, I don't mind that. We can cut down on one of the 7-drops. Like 7-drops are certainly playable in sealed draft. I would say they're a little bit less playable, but or maybe a lot less playable. But in sealed, normally you can get away with playing a 7-drop. I think the strategy for this deck here is that we're going to be using our mana for other things. We have additional mana sinks that we don't need to just tap out for a 7-drop. We can do things like activate these adapts, activate these abilities on the guild mages. We can use that for like yeah, like the adapt, like I said earlier. So yeah, I think we can get away with that. So what are we at now? 29, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 24. One additional cut would be made here. Looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 creatures. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 non-creatures. I like all of our non-creature spells. Shimmer of Possibility, I think, is actually our worst. Um, it's either Shimmer of Possibility, or we could cut like one of these 2-drops. I think our 4-drops. Actually, we are kind of clunky at the 4-drop slot. We could cut down on something like the Goreclaw Wrecker here as well. Yeah, I don't mind that. We can cut down on a Goreclaw Wrecker. That leaves us with 16 creatures, which is still a pretty solid number of creatures for us to play with. And then we have some solid support spells here. Open the Gates to help fix our mana since we're playing so many solid creatures. We have the ability to access them or to have the mana to cast them quite easily. And then we have Shimmer of Possibility again, maybe help us find a solid card later in the game, or help us again with our mana fixing. We have some decent removal spells, or at least interaction here with these 4 cards right here: the Flames, Law Mage's Binding, Skewer, and Thought Collapse. So yeah, I think this one's kind of like I would say sort of a greedy build. Normally in sealed you want to go like maybe one, or you want to go like 2 colors, maybe splash for 3 if you have some sort of a great card. But really when we looked at it, our rares weren't great. There was nothing, too crazy in terms of our rares. We could have put together probably a couple different decks that were just like mediocre, but I think this is probably the strategy here that would produce like the highest ceiling. Maybe also the lowest floor, since it's a lot easier for us to get not very good mana for our deck to be able to actually cast our spells. But I think this one has the highest ceiling, which is something I really look for in my limited decks, which is pretty solid here for this list. So we have an additional 12 cards here to put into our deck, which would be the basic lands. So now we have to figure out our mana base. So I think a great way of doing this is we'll just go ahead and open up a notepad here. You guys can do this, at your regular pre-release events too. We have this notepad, and we'll be able to just count how many symbols we have, and we'll take into consideration our 2-drops versus like our 6-drops and where we would need the mana for those. So for blue, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 symbols. So we'll go back here to the notepad. Blue, I don't even remember what number I just said. I think I said 17, let me recount this. I'm sorry. It was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 is the number. There we go. 12. After blue, we have red. After red, we had white as our splash color, and then green is also here as well. So for red, we are looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We're looking at 8 red. And for those of you who are confused what I'm doing here, I'm counting up the symbols in the right-hand corner and checking how many of each color, what colors is our deck predominantly versus some of the other colors, because that'll affect our mana base. We don't just want to run the same number of lands of each different type. Like we have, for example, 12 here. We could just run 3 of each basic, but I would rather not do that. I would rather have the deck set up to be, maximized for the mana base. So we don't really need white too often. We need it for Senate Guild Mage, and we need it for the binding, so we don't really need to run too many of the white sources. I'd rather run an additional like blue source, maybe green source. So I believe the next color on our list was white. So yeah, I believe it was just 2. Oops. white was 2. And then for green, we are looking at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So we're looking at 12 for green as well. And then what I'm looking for, so we're mainly green and blue, then red, then white, but something else to keep into consideration, the open the gates, even though they're 1 green mana towards this count, if we can get this 1 green mana and the open the gates, we can really find the rest of our colors because we can search up the gateway plaza, which can then give us access to all of our colors, which can be really important for our deck, and that's something we can do very early on in the game, so we want to be more likely to have that green source earlier on, for example, than we would want the white source earlier on. So I believe another thing you can do is keep into consideration the activated abilities as well. So there's more green here for these adapt abilities. There's a green over here for this one as well. 2 blue down here for these abilities. White over here. So keep in mind those sort of things as well. Blue and green for the adapt on the shark doe crab as well. Yeah, so, okay, we already have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 blue sources. So now we're going to keep in mind what sources we have. So we already have 5 blue sources. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 green sources. 2 white sources, and we have 1 red source so far. So now we're gonna go into the basics. So based on these numbers, I think I'm looking at least another 1 white source and multiple red sources. Like I'm thinking even upwards of maybe 4 red sources, possibly 3. I don't think we had anything that was double red, right? Yeah, we didn't have anything that was double red, so I'm thinking maybe an additional, probably just to be safe, we'll look at 4 mountains for basics. Mountains, and we have 12 basics to add to our deck. So 4 mountains, that leaves us with 8 more. We're splashing 2 white symbols, so I think 1 additional white source is all we need for that, so 1 plains. And then we can pretty much make the rest of it blue and green. We do have to keep in mind that we already have quite a few blue and greens up here as well. So we could maybe just go, we have 7 more to choose from. We could do just the even blue-green split where we could go, I said 7, yeah, there's 7 left, so it would be 4 forest and 3 island, because then we would have 4 and 4 to make 8 green sources, and we would have 5 and 3 to make 8 blue sources. But I don't think I want to do that. I think it's more important that I have an additional green source, because we do have double green for Ceratok and the Frilled Mystic, and we have double blue for Thought Collapse and for Frilled Mystic. So I think I kind of want, maybe we could actually probably get away with only 2 white sources. It's kind of risky though. We might actually just have enough blue sources already. I want to make sure that we can hit the open the gates as early as possible, so I think what I'm looking at here is maybe going up to 5 forest and 2 island. That would give us then a total of 5 and 4 for 9 green sources, 7 blue sources, 3 white sources, and 5 red sources. And then that keeps in mind that we want to cast our green spells a little bit earlier. The red spells we can wait on a little bit because those cards are a little bit more expensive. We don't really have any red 2-drops. It's pretty much just 3-drops and later for those. Of course, except for like this, if you can spectacle it for 1, but again, we don't necessarily need that right away. So yeah, I think that would be the deck I put together. We'll go ahead and add in these basics. So 4 mountains, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it was 1 plains, 5 forest, 1 plains, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then finish it off with 2 islands. Sounds correct. Alright. So yeah, this would be what I put together from this sealed pool. Again, it is possible that you could go with a much more conservative deck and just play something simple. Like maybe you could just play Azorius. The white cards here are fine. There's nothing too crazy here out of the white cards, but like they're okay. Fairy Duelist is fine. The Petitioners are like fine. They're not the worst, I guess. Um, yeah, you could put together pretty much a reasonable deck from any of these. You could maybe not so much with the black cards. I'm kind of underimpressed with the black cards that we had here. So maybe not something with black, but pretty much any of the other options. I think you could arguably say that you could put together a solid deck for. Maybe if you went like Mardu, then you'd be able to play the where's Bedevil at? There it is, Bedevil. Then you would be able to play something like that, and have the double splash here for Bedevil. It is possible that we could even splash for for Bedevil and just be full on 5 color. Or I guess yeah, that would make us full on 5 color. So it is possible that we could do that. I don't think there's any other black cards that I would splash. Yeah, nothing else here is too crazy. Yeah, so I probably wouldn't splash any of the other black cards. But then we could possibly even, throw in something like the Cold Guildmage, or throw in something like the Syndicate Guildmage. Just play basically Guildmage tribal. But I think our deck is pretty much solid as is. For these 40 cards, we're mainly a blue-green base, a little bit of red in there, and then just a slight white splash. We don't really need the white splash, but I do like having an additional removal spell in here. And I think the Senate Guildmage is fine, just helping us loot, which I think is something very underrated. And in Limited, this is one of the best things that you could possibly be doing, just drawing through your deck and getting your way to the more powerful cards. Card draw is quite strong, in especially sealed, where you're just trying to find your more powerful cards before your opponent can find their more powerful cards. So I think this deck turned out pretty well. I think it's pretty solid. You could also argue as well that the Open the Gates could count towards your land count, so that you could actually cut a land. I don't think for this specific deck that I want to do that, because of us needing to us playing 4-color. I don't think I want to cut a land due to having to open the gates. I think this isn't the deck to do that, but I think in most decks, if we were just playing, for example, a basic Simic build or a basic Gruul build, I think you could cut down on a land for running the open the gates. You could just switch out 1 forest for an open the gates, or switch out 1 mountain, or whatever, 1 basic for the open the gates, and then you can run 16 lands instead. For this one, we want to make sure we're hitting our land drops. We want to make sure that we're hitting our colors, so I think we would end up playing something like this. Decent little curve here with some creatures. It is a little bit awkward, I guess, because we do have so many 2-drops, so we could be kind of a more aggressive start, but at the same time we are running a reasonable number of ETB tapped lands, like the Plaza and the Guild Gates, as well as the Breeding Pool. But yeah, I think this is what I would play. I think it has the highest ceiling, possibly the lowest floor, again, like I said earlier, because of our potential mana problems, but I think that this deck would have the potential to possibly take down the pre-release event. So be sure to let me know down below in the comment section, what would you guys have built from this this draft that we had here. Would you guys have potentially gone for just something nice and safe, like a 2-color build, maybe with a small splash for something else? I like going in a little bit. I like being pretty greedy, I'm not gonna lie, when it comes to Magic. I like keeping those really risky openers and then getting paid off for them, and things like that. So I'm perfectly fine with knowing that I might lose a game to not being able to cast some of the spells, but I think the upside is there for being able to play all the most powerful cards in my sealed pool and have a pretty reasonable deck. So with that being said, let me know your thoughts down low in the comment section regarding my first attempt here at a build for Ravnica Allegiance. I look forward to pre-release coming up this weekend, and I hope that you guys stay tuned to the channel, because we're going to have more pre-release content coming out later this week, and we're going to have a bunch of draft content coming out next week as we look forward to our first drafts for Ravnica Allegiance. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. Be sure to leave a like if you guys did enjoy. Subscribe to the channel if you guys are new, and I'll see you guys here next time. Thank you all so much for watching today's video where we did my first ever attempt at a Ravnica Allegiance pre-release practice sealed pool. If you guys did enjoy, like I said, be sure to leave a like on it for more videos like this to come in the near future. At the end of all of my videos, I'd love to give a huge shout out and thank you to my patrons over on the Patreon page for supporting me. So huge shout out and thank you to Jeremy, Jason, Daniel, Rodrigo, Badwolf MTG, Down Under MTG, and Jythe Sworn for supporting me this month over on the Patreon page. Greatly, greatly appreciate it, and I'll see you guys here next time.